Awesome. Okay. Welcome, everyone. I want to welcome Jyoti for technically second episode of Ninjacorn podcast. So you're number two. Almost got number one, but one
Almost
got
number
bumped.
one.
So did you want to give yourself a little intro of how we know each other, and I can riff off that so then we can start?
Yeah, sure. So let's see. I've been meditating in this lifetime about 5 years now,
Yeah.
in San Diego at a place called Dharma Center, and that was where I met Ekajati. Or what is your name on the podcast?
Ekajati. Yeah, we can go by our spiritual name.
All
I
right,
like that.
cool. And within the first year, I started going to some of her classes, and I liked them. And then I got more involved, and we would go on retreats, and then eventually do other events. And we did a big event about a year into my attendance at the center. I think that was when we first really connected. And then ever since then, just classes here and there, more retreats, and we're sangha on the path, I would say.
Yes. Yes. Perfect. Well said. Yeah, I know Jyoti through Dharma Center of Trikaya Buddhism. And yeah, we were studying under Turiya, our kind of teacher and root guru teacher. You probably hear his name is Rama, Dr. Frederick Lund. And one of the exciting things I wanted to bring you, Jyoti, onto the episode is because you've had time practicing, but you didn't just walk in the door. So I feel like anything goes with topics and love to get some of your perspective, your insights on some of these questions I have for you.
Yeah, sure. Before we go, can I ask you something that you just mentioned?
Yeah, yeah.
So recently, I had a friend who's on the
Mm,
path as well ask me, what's a root guru or a root teacher? And I kind of knew how to tell him, but I didn't. I just told him I think it's the one you have the most affinity towards or the one you work with the most. But they were confused. They weren't sure if it's like their current teacher now or like if it's, and for our
right.
sake, like Tariya or Rama. And I really didn't
Yeah.
know how to explain to them, this is what a root guru is. Like, do you have any insight on how I could tell someone
Yeah,
or know for
that's a
myself?
great yeah, that's a great question. And please do ask questions because that is super helpful. This is like a super collaborative thing. I don't want to just be interviewing you and you're like, okay, because that's what happened in the first episode. They're like, wait, can I flip this script? I was like, absolutely. That's the fun part, right? Um, so you make me think of root guru in this like gardening plant organic
Yeah.
metaphor, which is, from a seed sprouts plant life and all that stuff like that. And essentially, it's very individual to the person of who their root guru is, of what then sprouts like their spiritual journey, their spiritual practice, and all that stuff like that. And for me, I would say Rama is my root guru because he opened that doorway. He had already a structure in place of meditation, martial arts, and career success that he had taught his students, right? And though there are generations of those students from the 80s and 90s,
Hmm.
and I learned directly from one of his students. But at the same time, I still recognize Rama as a root guru because he's the one that uh, created those structures. He's the one that put out those teachings, and that's why I call it like the root. Like he was the initial person that seeded everything to then let everything else blossom to, generate thousands and thousands of students that then have our teachers that have more students, right, and so forth like
That makes
that.
sense.
So then there's like it's not intended to be like a up down hierarchy thing, but as a way of thinking about it, it's like, Rama, top down kind of thing, root guru, and then Tria was one of his students, right, underneath
Hmm.
that. And then you and I are one of the students of Tria, who's underneath her, right? And then when I have people in my classes that like I directly work with and students, and then when you start teaching, then you'll have students. So it just kind of right? And so they might see you as their teacher, but if we're looking at the whole lineage of generations, like a family tree, I would still reference Rama
Rama.
as the
Okay.
root guru, right?
That
And
makes
so,
sense.
yeah, yeah, yeah. like in Tibetan Buddhism makes me think of Padmasambhava, right? He would be considered like a root guru, but he had many students and his students branched off to many schools. And there's like books that show the kind of lineage and like family tree of that. So that's the beautiful fun thing of this practice is we know all about that. And at the same time, we have our specific lineage that has a very distinct flavor, right? And
Hmm.
as you know, that flavor has power, it has, you know, success,
Yeah.
it has don't be a wimp, you know,
Hmm.
but like have lots of fun.
Do you know anyone who has like considers their root guru like a deity or a god or goddess? You know?
Sure, sure,
Oh,
sure, sure,
okay.
sure.
Are they
Yeah,
within our lineage or just people you met along the path?
probably more people I've met along the path.
And they'll say like
Um,
Krishna or like medicine Buddha
yes,
or something.
yes, yes. Like it
Do you
makes
think?
me think of the Indian culture. You know, maybe some people feel like God Ganesh is the root guru kind of a
Mhm.
thing. Hmm. Hmm.
Do you think
Yeah.
that's because maybe they don't have like a flesh teacher or a teacher who had a teacher and they just kind of found books and videos and so they have
Mm.
an affinity towards like a god or goddess versus like people who are able to be inside a living lineage or have like a flesh connection or you could trace back the roots. You think that has to do with it?
You know, I'm not sure because I would probably have to ask them to get
I guess
their
we'd have to ask
specific.
them, right? Yeah, like
Yeah,
did
right.
you have a
Because I
physical
would just be
teacher?
making assumptions. But
Okay, yeah.
but for speaking for me, I feel like this lineage that awoke something very powerful in me to like be so committed into it.
Hmm.
And I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. Is because it was a living lineage for me to tap into, a living lineage of enlightenment and awakening that was possible not in this current lifetime, but also very really embodied by
Hmm.
other teachers that trauma taught or trauma students, if you will. Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Because
Makes
I'm
sense.
curious for you, like as you did your spiritual shopping before you met
Yeah.
us, committed to us, right? Dharma Center Trikai Buddhism. What was the final like? I'll go with this one and stick with it.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So so kind of like my whole life, I always felt like there was something more, something extra to life than just like, get a husband or wife and then a house, two and a half cars, a dog and a cat, two and a half kids, and you do a 9 to 5. So even when I was younger or a teenager, I always felt like there's got to be like another side to life. It's not just like this. I go to school and then I go to college and then I get a job and then I get a
Mm,
girlfriend and a wife. I was just like that. It just felt so linear or like so
mm.
I don't want to say basic, but I kind of felt like there's really nothing on the other side. And in our popular culture, there's always like ghosts or aliens or they make movies about Jesus and other stuff, but all these other sides of life, right? Or like magic and stuff.
Mm.
And so like things that had to do with like non just physical stuff always interested me. But not so much like occult type stuff, but more so just like beyond the physical realm.
Uh-huh.
And I never knew like how to hone in on it. So I always knew like growing up I was a Christian, went to a private school, and then
Yeah.
my mother was very devout, so I was going, and so I always knew like the energy when they talked about Jesus was real, and stuff like
Hmm.
that. But for
Yeah.
me, that didn't feel like my home or like what I mean. But it's like it made
Yeah.
sense that yeah, Jesus was real. He did the miracles, all the other stuff, or God or energy, whatever you want to say. And then
Yeah.
um, as I got older and like around into high school, beginning of college, like, I had some friends that were into like aliens and conspiracies and, and then people would dismiss it. And I was like, I could see how that can be real. The, universe is
Mm.
infinite, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then, just kind of searching in college is when I first started to actually look. And I remember they would have different llamas and stuff come. I went
Yeah.
to San Diego State and they would come have a talk. Different teachers and clubs would invite them. My friend and I, we'd always go and we would sit and like the more things we went to, the more we saw like it had something to do probably with like meditation
Wow.
I don't even think like the word Buddhism was in our like awareness because I
Mm.
grew up around I had Buddhist neighbors on every
Oh,
side across the street, left and right.
oh,
Now the other houses in between were Catholic or Christian, you know,
uh-huh.
some nothing, but you know, I never knew what Buddhism was, and so
Oh, right.
um, and I, you know, I was never invited to go to their temple or something. I wouldn't have
Uh-huh.
been allowed with the parents I had. So, uh, so like even though I was right there and it was next door, there was no awareness. And so then I remember one time my college friend he found in the local like paper it said um, meditation workshop, and it was like hundreds of dollars, but then it said free to any college students with active ID. So we said we have to go to this. Like,
Oh,
you know, we'll never be able to afford something like this. Like, you know,
uh-huh.
let's go. And so we went, and
Yay.
I think that was the first time I've kind of felt something that felt like authentic or real or like at home or kind of like what
Mm,
we've been looking for. There was still
mm,
something that didn't quite feel like home, but it felt like the right city or the right
mm.
neighborhood.
Yes, yes, very
So
well.
we went to the weekend workshop. I think it was 2 days, 2 nights, and
Mm,
then afterwards we're just like, you know, we'll never find something else. That must be it. And then I kind of gave up on the search for anything spiritual or what was on the other side, you know. And I went and you know finished college. I got a corporate 9 to 5, started dating, and I went full into that side of life. And
mm-hmm,
I achieved everything I wanted to, whether it was with like music, with the career, you know, getting the
mm.
degree, you know, having a relationship, you know, with someone I really wanted to, and like,
Yeah.
everything was just like great and perfect. And I still felt unfulfilled. I felt like a
Mm.
whole side of life was missing, like half of it or more. And I just accepted it that this must be life. And then 10 years go
Uh-huh.
by, Saturn returns happening like 29 and a half, 30. Lots of major devastating change, right? And so my
Oh,
college
shoot.
friend, he moved back to San Diego around this time, and he had still been searching that whole 10 years. I was just, you know, living and working in the world.
Mm,
And he
mm,
found, I think it was either on Google or in that same paper that we had seen in college on the local newspaper. Hey, there's a meditation place. And he went and on a Sunday and he came back and told me, hey, I think this might be the real deal. And I was like, you always say that. He goes, no, like this felt real. You should come with me.
mm,
And then I went with him, and I don't know how or why. It was at noon on a Wednesday, and I was super dedicated to work. I wouldn't leave even before lunchtime, right? And so I went with him, and it was Dharma Center, and the normal teacher, Barada, was out of town, so Taria was covering for her. Um,
shoot.
yep, and
Oh,
the class was just Taria, myself, and my friend.
yeah.
And I remember during that, I hadn't meditated in, you know, the 10 years since the workshop. I
Yep.
remember just kind of, she spoke a little and then she played some music for us to meditate to.
Yeah.
And by the second song, I was just like, you know, completely like, I don't know how to describe it. We were sitting kind of like half lotus on the floor. I
Mm-hmm.
was like so far back, like my neck and head just from going, or like about to touch the ground. Like I couldn't, and I didn't even realize it. And then, you know, there was just tears coming out, not of
Mm,
sadness, but just I don't know. It was just like a reaction my body had, and I was like blown away by this experience and the energy and tears, and I could tell the song was ending, and I
mm.
remember um, quietly sitting forward again, so the 3 year-old my friend couldn't hear, and taking my sleeve to wipe my face, the tears off. And then when at
Oh,
the end we bowed, opened our eyes, I just kind of acted like, but you know, and then we ran out. I remember telling my
too cool
friend,
for this school.
yeah, I was like, I can't let this person think I'm crying and stuff, you know, over here. And, you know, and I told him, yo, that was the realest shit I've ever been through. We have to come back. And then we started going 4 or 5 times a week, and the rest is history.
You know, thank you for telling me that story again. I love it. It's so beautiful because honestly, that's exactly what happened to me. You know,
Hmm.
when I realized I was home, home, home was it was at a Rama birthday celebration at a USC, you know, school auditorium. Very kind of basic, not super
Hmm.
anything special. but they did a meditation and they played his album of the Samurai album with him talking. And when his voice came, oh, like you,
That was amazing.
calling, I was like, I've been looking for you. I'm home, like a sense of home that I had never felt in this lifetime until that moment.
Hmm.
Right. And so, oh, that's so beautiful. I love it. I love it.
I think that was when I knew I found something real. I didn't know if it was home yet, so I misanswered the question. That was when at least I knew this was legit, and not only legit,
Okay.
I liked
Yeah.
it and wanted to continue it. I knew the thing in 10 years before was legit, but I kind
Okay.
of didn't want to continue in that school.
Uh-huh.
And
Uh-huh.
then so we kept coming, and
Yeah.
I just remember people talking
Uh-huh.
about stuff that I'd never heard about in this lifetime, and it making sense. And then getting recommended books, and then like you
Yeah.
said, it was when someone introduced me to the talks, Rama's talks, and I
Yeah.
started listening to them. Like I didn't have TV, got rid of the TV and all
Yeah.
the streaming, and my entertainment at night would be 1 to 3 talks, listening to them, like sitting there, like
Oh,
each word like I was going to school. And
wow.
I remember just he would talk about the stuff, and each topic would just make so much sense. It
Mm.
was like reading through like old notes, and um the like the leveling up in my life from hearing those talks, and like my
Mm.
understanding of meditation, what I was looking for, all that stuff, that was when I knew, like, wow, I'm home, because I tried to read other stuff when I was younger,
Wow.
and like nothing clicked. Or I went to different stuff. I've been to Tibetan stuff. I want to say I had a Zen experience, and then we went to everything we could in college, and like nothing,
Right.
it would be almost the same stuff but spoken differently, and it wouldn't sink in, didn't make sense, didn't
Yeah.
feel like that was my connection. But
Yeah.
this was just like, wow, this makes sense. I totally get it. I want to know more. Tell me more. And there
Yeah.
was nothing that I was like, I don't believe that, or everything was like perfect. And I just remember I couldn't get
Wow.
enough of it. And that was probably about 4 months into being at Dharma Center when
Yeah.
I knew, all right, that this is real, and this is my home.
Wow. Okay. So off that, I have a question for you, which is
Hmm.
back then, what did you feel, when you first started, what did you feel was like the most amazing Rama talk that like hit you? And like now, after practicing a couple of years, have, done meditation retreats and stuff like that, had a little more experience on the path, like what is like, oh no, no, that talk is what's really vibing for me now. Like, what's
Yeah.
the little before and after?
So the first series I was introduced was the Lakshmi series. It's like 29 talks or so,
Yeah.
and it covers like pretty much anything you can need to get, jump start in this lifetime on meditation and on your path to enlightenment. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember um the first one where he talks about introduction to meditation. I like that one. Pleasure, pain in the senses, living and working in the world, because these
Mm,
are ones I can relate to. Starting
yes.
again, meditating, and then having like living in a beautiful city, being young and having all this other stuff, and you could go drinking or partying, or chasing the money or the other stuff. I
Mm,
was pleasure, pain in the senses, because I was trying
yeah.
to fulfill the emptiness that way.
Yeah.
And then living and working in the world, because I had a very, or I still do, very demanding job. So how
Yeah.
to reconcile, like, I don't want to be, I don't want to fight people. I don't want to have to do these like dirty politics, but I still want to succeed. And so I played the living and working in the world talk probably like 5 times. But
Wow.
I would say when I first started, those are the
Yeah.
ones that really hit me. Each
Yeah.
one was like so beautiful.
That
And
makes sense.
I say now I like to listen to like the humility and the purity ones. Like those are good, like pick me
Oh,
ups.
good ones.
And
Good
then in the
ones.
Zen series, if I'm ever having like a weird day or weird energy, I'll
Yeah.
listen to I think it's happiness or how to be happy in the Zen series. And
Mm,
he just, his like whole voice, and like the music's playing almost the whole time, and all the stuff. It's like
yeah.
I can't stay in a funk when that's playing, when that's going on. And so I'll use that one as kind of like a pick me up, now. But
Those are good ones.
yeah, really all of them. But yeah, my two favorite series are Zen series and the Lakshmi series.
I love it. Oh, thank you for saying that. And I'll definitely include those in the show notes so people have
Yeah.
links to them. Yay. Um, so another question.
Hmm.
what has been an important lesson for you in your meditation and meditation practice after all these years?
Yeah, I think as Taria would say, my teacher,
Yeah.
um, keep going. Is that how she says it? Like keep going. Then she
Yes.
says, pay attention and keep going.
Yeah.
'Cause there's been times where I felt like giving up just because,
No.
when you have like an amazing experience, right? And then you don't for a while or again, you start to wonder like, is this even worth it? Or did I ever really
Yeah.
feel better from meditating? Like, did
That's
it ever bring
right.
clarity or peace
The
or
doubt that
power? Yeah. And even though you might have journaled it, you might have
that's
distinctly
right.
remember the day or where you were when they happened. It
Yeah.
starts to be, the current doubt or the current like I can't reach it overshadows, you know, the fact that you've done it before, you can do it
Mm,
again. And
mm.
then, that's kind of like getting lost in what the meditation's about. It's not about trying to touch some energy or get some type of result from it. We do it, we should be doing it without any expectation, beginner's mind. Every time we sit is like the first time, because then that allows us to experience even bigger, even better. And I think this is something you had pointed out to me a couple of years ago when I was in a rough
Oh.
patch. And yeah, and I come to one of your classes, and I'd been kind of going through not being able to get high meditation experience, and
Mm,
I think I was trying to get a specific result or feeling that
mm.
I had gotten before. Um, but what that was doing, that was like creating instant Maya or whatever, if I wasn't.
Yeah.
And so that wasn't opening me up to peace
Yeah.
or love. I wanted to feel, like a bliss or my power. And so because I had limited it, I was just bypassing all these other beautiful,
Yeah.
exits or roads on the path to enlightenment. And so I think the main thing I've learned in my meditation practice is just keep going, and then eventually we get better at it. It's like learning an instrument. You're not going to pick up a guitar and shred day one. Even if your parents played, even if you're getting lessons, it's going to take time, and you're only going to get better if you do it every day, or as often as you can. You play once a year, you're going to get once a year results. You play every day, even on some days where you're tired, or it just seems harder, or none of the notes sound good. You can't even write a song because one day you will be inspired, and maybe it's taking all those times to really enjoy it when it is inspired. And then you remember. And the next time it's not as inspiring, it's easier to keep going because you've been there before. Like, oh, yeah, I've been through the valley before. Now let's climb the mountain again. We just got to keep going. And so I just my main advice to future self, if you're watching this or anyone else, if you're having a hard time with meditation, just keep going. It does get better. Um, don't give up.
Yes, yes. And when I hear you talk about it that way, I absolutely 100% agree. I also hear those underlying themes of like discipline, right? To keep doing it and practicing it, even if you're not having a good day, not getting that music out that you want, that consistency, right? Creates that discipline. And then the other piece is this infinite refinement process. And
Mm,
and this is this word that I've been loving, this because that's what this practice and this art is constant refinement.
yeah.
And this is what I feel like I have such a loving space for in the Japanese culture, because so many of their arts, martial arts,
Yeah.
tea ceremony art, ikebana, the flower arrangement art, is a continual refinement piece. Where I was talking to my sensei earlier, there's this tea master that ended up passing away, and I was like, how did they determine like mastership of tea? And he's like, there's definitely like committees and stuff set up so that people
Wow.
are vetted, right, to be like the master. And I was like, he's like, it's probably not like a belt test in martial arts. It's going to be a different, structure. But then he's like, he had that little posing question. He's like, it's just making tea and it's just drinking tea. But he says
Yeah.
it like it's so simple, but it
Yeah.
like I cannot wait for like the formal masterful tea ceremony, because there's so many intricate things around it. And then he was mentioning about how, because when we go on our Japan trip with Sensei that's coming up, at the end of March, um, he has arranged for us to have a meal with real live geishas. And I'm
Oh, wow.
like, And he's like, in Japan culture, geishas are almost like more popular than Hollywood celebrities because it is
Are they
absolutely an
rare now?
art. Yes, yes. And he was talking about how starting in junior high school, these women
The
or these
training?
girls back then, yeah, they get pulled out to start their training. And I was like, whoa, like, and they train every day. And he doesn't know all the details of their training, right? And stuff like that.
Hmm.
But it just left this real sense of like, what a what a mindset, what a state of mind, and what a being to cultivate something lifelong, fully in about refinement. And even when you reach tea master ceremony, title,
Yeah.
you're still refining. Like, and I think that's the amazing things about cultures, like, that Asian culture piece,
Hmm.
that sometimes I feel a little sad that it gets sometimes lost in the Western culture because it's more maybe like get the awards, certificate, accolade, and
Yeah, the Western mindset of, capitalism or me or
mm-hmm.
for the
and
achievement.
and maybe losing some of that refinement process because once you've gotten it, it's like I got my PhD, got my master's, and then, I mean, usually PhD, right? They continue with research and all stuff like that. But in
Hmm.
other things, sometimes people get it and they're like, now I can coast instead of like continuing to polish and refine. So I love that point that you made. Um, so another question.
Can I make one comment on
Oh yeah,
the
yeah.
meditation
Thoughts?
question?
Mm,
Yeah, how you talk about how like in martial arts, or all the different type of arts, right? It's about, even if when you become a master, about the refinement. I would say, in meditation it's like that too, but also life is like that because it's
mm,
like we should always, and I think most of us do, right? Continually refine how we live life, how we approach relationships, how we approach each day. I hope we're all still not living each day like, how we did, like, in teenage years or something, unless you were a super enlightened being at that time. But there's always a way to live a little bit better, and not like to beat yourself up like, oh, I could have done this today, like, but to take it as a lesson and to say, like, it's a journey, not the destination.
mhm.
And so meditation's like that too. You might have leaps and bounds of growth in the first 1 year, 2 years, and then it might
Yes.
be about refinement for the next 3, 4, 5 years. But that's beautiful. Just like in life, we don't give up. We don't learn how to say mama, dada, and then say that's enough English. That's enough language. I'm going to go to school and have a life. And you have to just mama, dad. No, you keep learning the language, and then once you know all the words, you learn how to put them in better sentences, and how to be more effective. When you're speaking, or if you're going to become an author, you really need to understand the art professor of the language. Or even if you're just going to use it for fun or to make friends or whatever, like there's the refinement of that. And we use language, and then we learn how to not use bad language, in the wrong setting, hurtful
Mm,
language, even self-talk in our head. So I would
yeah.
say that's a meditation. Once you start it, don't give up. It can be a lifelong thing, like in refinement, like life
Yeah.
is. We don't give
Yeah.
up on life. We refine every day, hopefully, to make it better, brighter, and find the joy in what is.
Right, right. Which I feel like it's not better or worse, but I feel like that specific little not requirement, how should like that specific enjoyment that we get something out of learning and refining
Hmm.
continuously is I feel like a trait that is what I've seen with other spiritual practitioners or meditation practitioners, right? There's always like a profile. It's like when you interview for a job, there's a profile specific
Hmm.
for this job description that you want this person to meet. And what I have seen, with spiritual practitioners, meditators, part of one of those profile things is like uh constant like curiosity, hunger, appetite for refinement, personal development, learning, right? Growing, because it's real that some people are kind of done learning at a certain point in their life and they just want
Hmm.
to do the whole thing, which is totally fine. No judgment there at all. But I just know, like, for us, we're like boring. That, like, I agree with you. Like, I need to constantly learn, and that learning brings so much joy and uh, aliveness into my life, right?
Hmm.
That energy, there's an energy to that, to learning, right?
I think we've firsthand seen the benefit of refinement, whether it's like being more skillful with how we treat ourselves, how we treat others.
Mm,
And so it's like,
mm,
why not get a little bit more and get more? And we've also, we're now a little more aware of when we are hurt or we do hurt others, we bring harm to others, what that feels like. And it's like, we might not have been aware of it, in young relationships or things like that, how we interact with people or, with classmates or even coworkers and family members, right? And there's the little things that we do or we get caught in. And then, as you start to increase your awareness through the self-discipline, with meditation and unlearning of all the things that, we're put through,
yeah.
to kind of be socialized, you start to see, well, not only do I want to live better for myself, I want to live better for my neighbor, for my beloved, for my loved ones, for the people I will be interacting with, so that it's more like a dance and less like a fight. How can we, get through
Uh-huh.
more? It's like it is like art, and so how can
Yeah.
we do the art of life? And I think having that
Yeah.
self discipline and having the meditation and the awareness to say, "Ooh, it would feel real good right now to say this to them," and I know exactly what to say, but then, you say it and it feels good for a split second, and then you see the hurt it caused, and then later you feel the hurt
Oh,
it's caused you for having caused that harm.
oh,
And then you're weird to go talk to them or bridge, it
oh,
creates a whole different karma loop when you start to act like that or live your life like that, either
yeah.
selfish or
Yeah.
harmful. And so to be able to refine, to see stuff you didn't even see before of how you're doing things to yourself or others, it just brings more light, peace, love to the world. And I think that's what excites us to keep learning and, how to do better, how to grow, how to become, live a more aligned life. So,
Okay, so I love that word that you brought up, skillful means, and
mhm,
skillfully, addressing situations, relationships,
yeah.
communication. Because I'm curious for you, what's the definition of skillful means for you? Like how I kind of heard like how you applied it, but what's the direct like definition that you have
Mhm.
for it? And any suggestions or tips for people listening, like how to utilize skillful means in tough situations when you're saying, now there's a vibe, and now it's like, oh, hurt, and everyone's like, it's just a struggle, or it feels like a little tension or fighting, right?
Mhm.
So, yes, thoughts.
Yeah, I would say for me, skillful means is like using mindfulness to live better and kind of like eradicating or taking out the ego that we have.
Mm,
And so,
good.
sometimes I see like mindfulness and ego as like opposites, even though we shouldn't be talking, in dualistic terms. But um, so like, and I'm able to practice this more now. Like when I'm
Yeah.
texting with a friend, they're having a rough day and they say something that's like a you know, little prickly, right? And it might not be directly at me, right? And then there's a response I can do to be prickly back or to take it
Snarky.
personal,
Mm,
or I can kind of see they're having a rough day, this is just a moment. How can I answer without ego? How can I read their answer without ego? How can I respond without ego?
mm,
And not so I can pat myself on the back, but just because the egos almost are never needed, but especially not when someone's going through something, right? Like how
mm.
can I show up for them and in turn showing up for myself? So I think it's through mindfulness, being able to, because you could do so many things different ways, right? You can stop someone from coming into your house by locking the door. You could also stand there with a gun, right, with the door open.
Yeah,
But
the vibe is
do you have
different.
to stand there with the gun looking, or you just lock the
Good.
door and they know, hey, don't come in, right? And so it's like there's so many ways to do stuff, and I think
Ooh,
skillful
that's a good
means,
metaphor. That's
yeah,
a
is
good metaphor, Jody.
is how can you do it without kind of bringing more harm to yourself or the other? How can you bring more peace, bring more love, bring more light? All the beautiful positive words, take things less personally, because there is no I there. There shouldn't be the ego, and there should be just the me or the you. So when you're hurt, I'm hurt. How can I relieve the hurt for both of us
Hmm.
instead of add or exacerbate it? So for me, that's what skillful means is.
And so crazy. I don't know if you realize it, but when you're talking about that exchanging text, like do it without ego, read it without ego, right? I heard compassion fill that space.
Yeah.
right? And I feel like that's what I would define as that's compassionate, like being, with another, with yourself. And wow, cool.
Compassion's
That's awesome.
huge. Yeah. It's good to have that versus ego.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. 100%. Very good. Okay. What's another question I have for you? Um, what have you learned about yourself and your relationship with others? I think this is a nice little segue
Oh.
from the skillful mean.
Oh, this part's
Like hindsight.
taboo.
Yeah.
I won't
Yeah.
answer this part. No. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But yeah, but
Okay.
the relationship stuff. Um,
Skip it.
no, no, I'm just
Yeah.
kidding. But I would say that's what I struggle with the most is how I treat or think of myself. Very highly, very easy to do. And think that was like where I was able to shore stuff up first. And then in situations I find myself, that's where I was able. I think it was in how do I better be in relationships, whether romantic, whether friendly, familiar,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
even with neighbors, like that to me is like where I'm like putting all the things I learned into practice day after day. A lot of other stuff, like self stuff,
Yeah.
easy for me to do. And, I need refinement and tweaks, but the major work that I've seen I've had to do is in relationships, all different types of them.
Oh.
Those are usually in my weekly, daily, monthly goals of like, how can I approach things with a parent better, with someone
Mm-hmm.
I'm interested in dating, friends,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
people have their good times and the times where they have
Yeah.
less capacity to be skillful themselves. It happens to all of us, right? And so
Amen.
it's like that to me is like what I've learned I need to work on, and just
So
really have to use
knowing,
mindfulness.
okay, so knowing that you have to work on it and using that on any tips, any lessons, you're like, okay, people listen up. Don't do what I did with this. Like, and you don't need to be specific, right?
Hmm.
It's like, but a lesson
Yeah,
that you
I would say zoom out. I would zoom out because like right in the moment, right? It might hurt and it might seem like the whole world, the whole universe, your
learned.
entire life is this one moment, this one thing. But zoom out is what you're about to do or say in this relationship right now. Is it
Oh,
is it like worth the lasting impact that could happen for tomorrow, a week, a year, forever? You
mm,
know, does this moment have to then be defining of what it is, or is it just a
right,
hiccup, a bump in the
right,
road? And so I
right.
would say zoom out and say, are you taking it personally? Like what will you gain from approaching stuff selfishly or
Yeah,
unskillfully, or
yeah.
just kind of taking things personally, because even if someone is trying to make it personal and they're using
Mm,
your name and they're trying to say you have greenish blue hair, and they're getting a real, like for me, real
yeah,
specific.
yeah.
i
F
don't have to
you, whatever. Yeah.
I don't have to take it it's a choice, right? Because and also, how much do I want to let it affect me? If I'm in the grocery store and someone kind of says something to me, it might sting. But if like someone super close to me says it, it might sting more because I know them. There's more
Yeah.
energy.
Yeah.
But at any point, it's the same thing. I don't have to let the grocery store passing thing, I can impact me, and I don't have to let someone who knows me well what they're saying impact me. I can move through it. I don't have to identify, even if it is personal attack or something, right? So just
Right.
zoom out and say, is it worth me engaging on this level? Or how
Mm,
can I engage on a better level? How can I engage on a level that brings healing, that bridges the gap, doesn't create more of it, that brings
right.
trust, love, the things you want to see in the relationship. Bring that even if the other person's not. Now don't accept abuse,
Right.
or harm. Move yourself out of the way. But I think a lot
Yeah.
of times we get hung up on little things like it's not so much a stab as much as it's a little prickly, right? So, you know,
I'm gonna use
that's the
that,
word
my
of the
new
day.
word of the day. Zoom out.
There we go.
I know there have probably been many, but what is a powerful, transformative moment for you on the path that you would like to share, for those
Ooh,
listening?
yeah, yeah. I remember one when it was about a year into being on the path. and we were doing a celebration right before COVID started in February 2020
Oh,
for Rama's birthday, Root Guru's birthday. It would have been
yes,
his 70th birthday, and
right.
it was a big event. It was like ball gown type event,
Yes,
and
yes.
it was
Mm.
about 2 days, like Friday evening into Sunday afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
And Friday evening was like kind of just like meet and greet and dinner, you know.
Mm.
But the actual Saturday was like all day presenting, and that's when
Yes,
everyone was going to be there. Now I
yes,
was in charge with one other person for audio video, and yeah, and I remember leading up to the event, and
yes.
I didn't sign up for this, by the way. My friend signed me up. Yeah, I was
You
out of
get
town.
tricked into that.
I was at my grandma's birthday out of
Oh,
town, and then I guess you all had a meeting for it, and then my friend volunteered. Oh, Tommy and I, or Jyoti and I will do that, right? And then so I come back and I'm
oh
like,
God.
wow, this is a big ordeal, right? So we had 2 or 3 months left to kind of put all these pieces together with people I'd never met, and for a type of occasion I've done event stuff in college, and then for my job, even charity events and stuff through my job, but
Yeah.
not at the like the level of detail or um let's for a callback refinement that this event was going to call for. And I
Ooh.
wasn't the final say of like here's what's acceptable like I was in those events.
Yeah.
This was like a service I was giving for other people for
Yeah.
them to enjoy an experience. And so I just
Yeah.
remember even up on Friday night we had the dinner meet and greet, and Thursday night before the dinner, and Friday was when we're
Oh.
going to set up the stage and all. And I remember
Uh-huh.
thinking, there's still so many things that have to be like come together for tomorrow. And
Yeah.
here's the experience that I remember from it. And this is the first time it ever happened. Is so we're in my apartment, my friend and I working on trying to get the stuff together and send out the last. Hey, do you have this? Is this coming? And I
Yeah.
remember feeling out of nowhere like an energy come to me, and it wasn't mine because we were freaking out, and I hadn't done anything in that day to like wasn't meditating for 4 hours, and I felt like this knowing and this clarity. Not only that, I also felt it viscerally in my chakras, and so I was like,
Ooh.
oh, weird, I can feel the energy, but in all of them. And so I kind of touched by like my belly button, and it was warm there. And then I moved my hand up, and it was normal. And when I got to my heart, it was hot again. And then as I
Oh.
moved it up, it was normal. And when I got to my throat, it was hot or warm again, kind of normal. Then on my third eye, and so I started freaking out. And I told my friend, come here," and I grabbed his hand, and I said, "I can't show you all of them, but I was like, feel like by my belly button." He's like, "Yeah, it's hot." I said, "Now
See?
fill up." He goes, and he felt that it was only where the chakras were. I had heat or energy coming off of them, and in
Whoa.
between didn't have that, right? Um,
Whoa. Whoa.
and I had that energy until about Sunday morning. So it got us through Friday, it got us through Saturday night, all the big parts of the events, and
Wow.
Sunday morning. And somewhere around Sunday afternoon, I didn't even realize it. It just kind of it went away, but I had never felt all of them alive, active, and even
Wow.
in the physical 3D sense of it, you could touch me where the chakras would be, and you could
Wow.
feel the heat, and it was not to the left, it wasn't to the right, and it wasn't in between. It was only where the
Chakras were.
chakras were, and
Dude.
that knowing that
Empowerment.
I don't know if it was from Rama or from Turiya. At
Uh-huh.
the time, I thought it was
Empowerment.
from Turiya because she knew we
Yeah.
had a lot to bring in to get it
Yeah.
done, and we were going to need a lot. And so
Probably both.
probably both,
Probably.
right? And maybe some other people, throwing some Hail Marys, but I was grateful for it. And that really taught me about selfless service, right? If you just show up with the right intent and you bring the best you can impeccably, God or source, whoever is going to do the rest. And so that helped to give me the confidence to do other stuff that I hadn't done, right, like at a new level. And that's helped in career, that's helped in relationship, and other stuff.
Wow.
I know this was my limit. I had done this before, but if I bring the best I can with the right intent, the universe will do the rest, right? So
Yes.
that was
Eternity.
beautiful for me.
Wow, I didn't know that. You didn't tell me that before. That's the first time I've heard it.
Yeah, I don't tell that one too much, right? Oh, my chakras were hot, people. But yeah, I guess I just never brought it up while we were around together.
Oh, that's super cool. I know. And then when you said how like Sunday after it just kind of left you, it made me
Mhm.
totally think of like a Cinderella story where like
Yep,
the
midnight.
clock struck midnight and like the pumpkin turned back, the carriage turned into the pumpkin.
Yep, yeah. But yeah, it
Wow,
was a
very,
beautiful experience, you know.
very cool. Very, very cool. Um, what if you had your old self in
Hmm.
front of you, whether that's the old self that has never come to Dharma Center, never
I'd hug him.
meditated, or the old self that when you first walked in, whatever you want to call your old self as, what would you want to tell your old self today? Like if you could shoot a message to him back
Hmm.
then, what would you tell them?
I thought about this recently. Um,
Oh,
I, I,
you be
I think,
reading my questions.
yeah, yeah, I was peeking to the astral. I,
No.
um, I first I would hug him, right? And hopefully he would take that hug because he might not
Oh,
back then, right? But hopefully he
oh,
would see I am him and he would take it. And then I would tell him, you know, just hang in there and like Tria tells us, keep going. Because I think how everything happened, all the stuff I've gone through, and everyone's been through stuff in their life, right? And
yeah,
everyone's story is, what it is. There's
yeah,
no better or worse. It's what we were
yeah,
given. I think if I were to change any of the major hurts or whatever, I might not have had the capacity or the drive to really throw myself into meditation or the path to enlightenment. You know, life might have still been too pretty or too clean to want to,
yeah.
you know, I had to go in the mud to become the lotus. But I think there was times where I didn't know it could get better. So I would tell myself, hey, just keep going. You always hear
Mm,
that, right? In like movies or something. Oh,
yes,
it gets better, kid. But
yeah,
at
yeah.
at least for me, it did. And not a lot of actual physical things changed. Same job, live
Uh-huh,
in the same
uh-huh.
place, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Parents stay the same. You can't turn them in, right? For new ones. No Amazon returns there. But it was how I showed up to things, be it relationships, the same job, which has only become like the capacity and scope have grown in that time. But I changed and things got better, but that was because I brought a better attitude, a better
mm,
knowing and showing up. So I
mm,
would just tell them, hang in there and
mm,
that's it. And then a hug, and, and hopefully he would get it and understand. Oh, future Jody, I
yeah.
trust him. I trust me, and I think I would.
Mm.
I'd like to say I would.
Oh my gosh, that's great. That's really, and what's so beautiful is I just hear such tremendous growth and love, the capacity to love, not just yourself, but others in your life now that it sounds like you didn't have back then, which I guess I wouldn't really know because, we didn't really hang out that much. We weren't
No,
that
I
close.
didn't.
So,
Nope. Did not know how
oh,
to give love. Did not know how to receive it. No, I did not. Good
wow.
assessment.
Wow.
But I've been in therapy, since 2023. Probably started like 35 years too late on that. I wish I started 35 years sooner. But to anyone watching, if you ever thought about getting therapy, do it. It's
Yeah.
99% not going to make you worse. So it's only going to make you better. And just to plug therapy again, the two things that have changed my life the most, and I'm talking like orders of magnitude, was coming to Dharma Center and meditating and, really studying. And then I thought, wow, this was a beautiful what it did to my life. There's probably nothing else that could ever give me that jump of a change or that, much quality of life. And then when I started therapy, boom, another one. It was like coming to
Wow.
yeah, like that much growth or capacity or just awareness or being able to love and to see like because I was seeing this much before this
Right.
much and then I saw this much and now I think I see this much and that allows you to really love life. So if you're thinking about therapy, go do it. There's tons of resources out there and you know if you don't like your therapist, get a new one. Like, don't stay stuck in
That's right.
something. It's like
That's
dating
right.
or something. You're not going to date someone you don't trust or you don't want to be vulnerable with.
That's right.
But yeah, like, please do it, and it'll help you. It'll change your life, and also meditate every day, twice is better.
Yes, I love that plug. Thank you. Because what what about therapy help to like just exponentially take
Mm,
your meditation practice next level? What about that? Because if you think about it, and I've thought about it, with my background in the work, right, is
mhm.
therapy is like the antithesis and the absolute dualistic thing of meditation and Buddhist practice, because Buddhist practice is and meditation is removing the ego, and therapy is all about the ego. Let's look at the ego. What is it doing? What is it trying to do?
Yeah,
Assessing.
I think that's why therapy is valuable because, you know, who doesn't still have some ego? And so if it still exists, let's not sweep it under the rug. Let's deal with it.
Mm,
And so I think the order in which I approached the two was also valuable.
mm,
Had I gone to therapy first years ago, I
mm.
wasn't ready to do the work. I would have either lied, I would have kept, I wouldn't have revealed the truth.
Oh,
I wouldn't have been as open.
oh,
Not like lie, but like, I probably wouldn't say my fault in an issue, right? Or maybe I would downplay it. Maybe I wouldn't be ready to talk about something super vulnerable that needed to be talked
yeah,
about to get the
right.
full picture and dissect it. So I
Yeah,
think if you're a human in this world, you know, you have to have some type, most people, right? Some type of little ego to operate, whether that's like in a corporate job or you're talking to
yes,
people at a TED talk or, you're in a relationship with somebody. I think even, I don't know, because I've never been and dated an enlightened person at the same time, but I would imagine there's still physical stuff that goes
yeah,
on. And so, and so,
definitely.
so I think just, having that, having it after meditation, where I learned to not lie. And so since I've been studying with Taria, like, um, I don't lie. She taught one of the things like this: it'll never bring you
That's
closer,
right.
so never lie. And she was interviewed by the San Diego Tribune, I think is what it's
Yeah,
called here, newspaper, years
yeah,
ago before I started. And they'd
yeah.
asked her, "Is there any time where lying would be okay?" And she said she thought about it, and her answer was, if let's say your best friend's husband or wife was cheating on them and you found
Uh-huh.
out the day they died, the one who was cheating, you probably don't have to go tell the husband or wife who survived. She said it's not really lying, but like you probably don't have to go and say, "Oh wow, your husband or wife died. Like, did you? I also found out when they died they're cheating on you
She
too."
did, yeah.
She says
Did
because
she
that's
really say that? I
in the
never heard
paper.
the
Yeah,
story. Yeah.
yep, in the newspaper, because that's just going to bring more harm. You're not like helping anyone get to a deeper truth, right? You're just creating. That's almost gossip at that point, creating Babylon.
So actually, it's not necessarily lying. That's where we come full circle. Is that's skillful means,
Mhm.
I would say.
Skillful means. So that's like a time where like you would just act like you didn't know anything because there's no one to bring to the truth. But so besides that, so studying with
Yeah.
Taria, I learned
Yeah.
to live my life without lying. And I don't think before I was like some crazy liar, but I think sometimes when we talk to people, and they say like, "Hey, do you want to come to this?" Like, "Oh, I'd
Oh,
love to come to that, but oh, I have an appointment." And it's like, "Oh, well, no worries, come after the appointment." "Oh, well, you know what?" And we do all these little gray lies or little white lies, right? And that just takes us further from the truth because we might keep getting invited to that same thing week after week after week. And if we're not interested in it, eventually the friend's going to resent us for always saying no. Where I can just tell them, "Hey, that's not really something like I like to do anymore. How would you like to go do this with me?" Right. And then you can still have that closeness. And so I think it was in dating where I saw like
yeah.
the kind of
Lies.
a faux lie,
Yeah.
like what are you doing tonight or something. You don't have to tell people exactly everything, but I used to deflect a lot more. But
Oh,
what
yeah.
what that would do is bring me further from my truth, right? Because then people get an idea about you that's not truthful or what your intent is with them with dating, because you want to be too cool and not show emotions, or because perhaps they want something more exclusive and you don't, or vice versa. But you're willing to let them do whatever, even if you want exclusive, because you get But bringing the truth gets you both to the truth, and they said, "Yeah, I would have been open for that with you, right?" But you don't know that if you're kind of lying to appease or to protect yourself, or you realize, hey, we're wasting time here. We can never, neither one of us will be able to achieve what we're looking for. Let's decouple. Bless you. Good luck. So,
Do you hear what you were saying there, which I feel like is a societal like I pray it's not an illness, right? That's like, or
Yeah.
a little like bacteria that's infecting everything, is those white lies. I feel like are an easy way to bypass healthy, open, honest communication. And
Hmm.
then communication, crumbles, healthy communication, and then you're spun into and spinning in this web of white lies that essentially builds more lies, and manipulation
Yeah.
probably, and then there's control, right? All bad crap, right? But if and it's such a it's easy
It's
to
easier in
say
the
a
moment,
what,
right?
right,
To like shy away and not really say how you're feeling or what you want because we don't
right,
want to hurt others and we don't want to be in an uncomfortable situation. But for me, like learning that through the meditation path and then starting to approach everyone from parents to
yeah,
coworkers to telling the boss or
yeah,
when I need
yeah,
the day off or whatever, and learning how to live more skillfully. That helped me when I got to therapy. That was probably one of the biggest things, was to be honest so I could show
yeah.
up, do the work, you know,
Oh,
say,
good.
hey, 80% this person hurt me. But 20% I was doing this too. Old me probably wouldn't have done that. They would have said 110% they hurt me, right? And then I'm going to get some advice
Wow,
that's not that applicable, right? But I want to know what was my fault in it, or, where can I show up better the next time this
beautiful,
occurs? And also,
beautiful.
how can I see or protect from that? So that's how
Yeah,
I think, you know, so I would say, even if it seems like meditation is or Buddhism dissolving the ego and therapy is focusing on it, I think just being honest, we still have a nagging voice sometimes, or there could be moments of lapse in judgment, or maybe there's some hurt or harm that we need to have addressed so we can move past it. So for me, going to therapy helped me to bring up stuff that I had just said I'm not even going to spend any time on it anymore, but it was still kind of there under the surface. And I had some real major life events occur recently,
right.
like pretty much a month or so after I started meditation, that would have really knocked me down, I think, had I not had someone to kind of talk about these real life
Good,
things and get
good.
through it. So I think they're really, they go yin and yang, hand in
That's
hand
right.
type. Yeah, so you want to dissolve the ego, but while it's dissolving, address the things that even made you want to go meditate and become enlightened. The suffering, right? Because there is suffering, the causes of suffering. You can end suffering, the end of suffering. Talk about that. Get that out. Get that addressed. You can live healthier. You can live more holy. You can live more aligned, more in truth. And that's just going to help your meditation practice because the ego is now quiet. It's been addressed. It's been resolved, and now it can go away. That's how I felt about it.
I love that. And I 100% agree. It's like meditation is like coupled with mindfulness, right? And our spiritual practice can super be benefited from the therapy piece, because
Hmm.
I think of therapy like the learning and seeing with clarity what our ego is up to, what its behaviors are, what its tendencies are, what its personality is, essentially.
Yeah.
And once you have that dialed in, it brings about amazing discernment, right? Discernment to be like, all right, I'm calling bullshit because that's my ego, right? In our mindfulness practice, and I'm going to do this instead. That's way more enlightening, awakening, and supportive for our spiritual journey. And dude, discernment is such a power pellet on the spiritual journey. No, right?
Yeah.
It's
It
like
is.
it's
It's
seeing,
mandatory, I would say. It's one of the mandatory
yes,
things.
and not in walking down the wooded path that at dusk, people are like, oh my gosh, it's a snake. No, it's actually a stick. That is
Yeah. Yeah.
discernment. And it makes a big difference when you know exactly what it is with that clarity to then skillfully and appropriately address that situation. Because if it was a stick, you would move in certain way around this,
Hmm.
wooded path. And if it was a legit snake, you would do something very different, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the whole part of like having like a therapist you trust and can be open with,
Yeah.
that allows you to maybe explore stuff that you might not get called
Yeah.
out on by a teacher or sangha mates,
Ah,
right? Things might not come up, or
right.
you might not even thought to bring some of these things up because
Yes.
in the process of meditation, I kind of thought I did a lot of work and accepted a lot of stuff, but there were
Mm,
still things that I didn't even recognize yet were issues. or were problems, right?
Whoa.
With how I was still
Good.
operating in my relationship to work, um,
Oh,
or
wow.
with people, whether it
Yes.
was friends, family, or potential dating partners.
Yes. Relationship. Mhm.
Either because tolerance level was acceptable, I didn't, the threshold wasn't hit. I didn't call it an issue because resiliency, or because I had more to do with what was going on. Like I was opting in, not to abuse, but like opting into more stress at work. I was choosing it, right? Because
Oh,
subconsciously I wanted the reward, more raise, more promotion.
uh-huh. Yes.
But I was still, even opting in, I would say, "Oh, I'm so stressed. I got these extra things, right?" But I chose that because I want these things and I got them, right? So it was like I had more control and power, but there were certain things and like how I was doing some certain habits or patterns in dating,
Yes.
and they weren't
Wow.
destroying me like they did in my young 20s or teens where you really don't know
Right.
what you're doing right at all. I kind of figured out how to, to do enough to not, get scarred, but I was still getting
Right.
scratched or scraped. And a lot of it was how I was moving about in it. And so I realized, wow, like I still, I'm not hitting the threshold of heartbreak or, complete hurt and all that. But there was these things where I could show up better that I might not have thought to bring, elsewhere. And so, you know, the therapy really helped to shine light on stuff I didn't even know was in the dark. The same way, meditation and spirituality did, right? Because we had a huge ego, or I did when I came to it. So it's easy to see look at all this stuff. But now that things are a little more subtle, there's more nuance.
Yes.
It's the refinement. And so for
That's
me,
right.
the therapy helped refine all that. And
That's
and
beautiful.
even better employ skillful means in areas that I wasn't even aware I could have been living better. So
Well, I love that because it makes me think of like the martial arts, like warrior terminology. It's like, okay, maybe what you were engaging in on the more subtle level wasn't like harming you where you were poisoned and you were
mhm.
like, out, laid out flat for a week. It's like, but you don't want to die by 1,000 cuts either,
Yeah,
like a
yeah, yeah.
thousand little paper cuts.
Yep. And you don't even realize
And
it till it's too late.
that's right, because it's just all just a little bit. And you're like, oh, not so bad. Oh, not so bad, right? But over time you realize the greater sacrifice and consequence,
Mhm.
because in this spiritual journey and practice is about refinement. You're like, no, I need to pay attention to that. Wait, what was kind of pinging me there? What
Yeah.
hooked me there? Right.
Yeah. It
With
just helps you live a
attachment.
better life,
Yeah.
and that makes
Yeah.
meditation easier, relationships easier, just being yourself
Yay.
easier. So I feel like, well, why not get all the help you can get, right?
Yes.
I like the
Awesome.
East and West approach to stuff. I think some people try to take one or the other, but I
Right.
think we live in a whole world. And so we have scientific stuff and we have mystical stuff. Why not use both? And so that's how I kind of live and approach my life. And that's why I like Rama, because he brought, like Eastern
Yes.
practice of meditation to the West. But he said, no,
Yes.
you don't have to become like some hippie on the side of the road. A matter of fact, don't live and work in the world, become successful. Because how can we help other people if we're not in the world with them? Like, if I'm
Yeah.
just like some wandering yogi or monk in a monastery, which those are good lives to do, but the common person, how can I relate or help them when I've not experienced the things they've gone through? Like I could say, oh well, just cut out everything and come do this. Like, but it's like that's not the world most people are born into, and everyone might not have on their journey in this life to become a monk or wandering yogi.
Right.
So it's like, how can I live an enlightened life in the world? And so, because then other people can see it as an example. We can talk about it, and now we have real practical solutions, and that's the East meets West. And so, I think that's one of the things that really drew me to the Sangha
Mm.
or this
Yes,
living
which is
lineage.
very skillful. That's super
Enlightenment as you
skillful.
are. It's like Nirvana said, come as you are.
Yes. Yes. And then maybe for like the last question, if you like to share your experience of getting your spiritual name, because
Oh
that's
yeah.
and for those that might not know, right? So in our kind of spiritual practice, when you have done enough work, this is my experience. So Jyoti, feel free to chime in when you tell your story.
Hmm.
When you've done a certain amount of work, right? It's like martial arts in a dojo or even in school or university, you've done a certain level of curriculum that you've completed and accomplished, and therefore there is another leveling up, right?
Mhm.
That next level allows you to open doors to other things. So once you get your graduate undergrad degree, then you're like, oh, it opens the doors to graduate school, whether it's master's, PhD, or PsyD, right?
Yeah.
Same thing with martial arts. You know, you belt rank up, but you have to put in the work to be able to level up because it demonstrates a certain amount of change and transformation in your ability to do the art you're doing. That this opens the door to maybe, you know, sit with sensei for black belt workshops that are just geared for black belts, right? It
Mhm.
opens doors. So that's how I see, you know, what spiritual names are on this journey and practice in our lineage. It's this uh, work that you've put in and integrated that allows you to level up. And for everyone, it's a little bit different. So I'm curious what your experience was when you got your spiritual name.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
congratulations,
Thanks.
what an awesome accomplishment.
Thank you. No, but I first got the name Jyoti 2 months ago, and I didn't know that was when I was gonna get a name. So when I first came to Dharma Center, and I was meeting the teachers and some of the elder monks or students,
Mm,
I noticed some had their mundane, boring names, right?
mm,
And some would go by the what I assumed to be spiritual names, and
right.
I was kind of aware of, like, there's like Rinpoche names, and there's like Pima names, and some
Mm,
people, like in yoga stuff, they take a name like love or heart love, and like
yeah.
that, so it wasn't that weird to me, but I didn't know like how or when you get one. And so I remember like the first 6 months, even a year, it wasn't even on the radar. But I remember like after that, thinking about, oh, I want a name. A name would be so cool, so cool. And I knew I was like nowhere near, right? And I used to kind
Uh,
of fantasize about like what name I might get and all
yeah.
that.
Oh,
Um,
what was your fantasy game?
well, I remember one of them was, and you were here for it. Hopefully, you don't remember the story. We were preparing for Rama's 70th birthday
Yeah.
celebration, the
Yeah.
ball gown, black tie event, and my friend and I were in the back of the center by the bookshelf. And while you were talking and leading the meeting, we were flipping through books, and the book opened up to a page, and it was silent because you would just open, and very respectful time. And the on the page, that it was about Avalokitesvara, or the other side of Kuan
Yes.
Yin.
Yes.
and
Yes. Yes.
and we had never seen that word before, or a word that long. And so
Or
we had no
like
idea who it
super,
was.
like supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
I didn't know how to say that name for another 2 years, right? And then I heard
Oh
someone
wow.
say
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And I think might even be saying it wrong. Avalo Hite Savara, and there's like
Yeah.
V's
Yeah.
next to R's.
Yes.
And
Yes.
my friend and I, we both saw it, and we started laughing silently because we both pointed to it like that would be my name, as like a punishment. I would get a name that is unpronounceable and that is like long, other, Ekajati, Taria, Varada, Nandi, Avalokite Savara, and like no one will be able to remember it. And so we laughed, and then we laughed. So that was always like a hidden joke we had was,
So
we
bad.
we were gonna get some like crazy obscure, like no one can ever write your name, remember it. And then the want for a name kind of went away because
Yes.
I guess I didn't really care, right? And then so this I got the name almost 5 years in. So first year wasn't on the radar, and then for a while I was like, I want one, I want one. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm volunteering, I'm helping, I'm meditating, I'm a good student. Where's mine, right? The ego side of
Wait.
it.
Yes. Yes.
And then I completely forgot about names or anything. And then it was just, that was around the time I started seeing like service was fun, is giving back. It's how you can exercise extra energy. It's how all we've been giving from the teachings and teachers, we can give back to the teachers, the center, the community. And so it became more of like karma yoga, or fun to serve, or to do better and to do things, versus like quid pro quo, or like cause and effect, give me something in return.
More
So
synergistic
yeah,
kind of thing.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
just like, well, this is what we do. It's not even like
Mm.
I'm doing it to get clout, I'm not doing it to get merit, for the benefit of everybody. It was what you do. um and
Yeah.
so I didn't even realize it until I figured out the day before we got the name, and we're getting a name. So one of my peers who started around the same time as me, she got a name the same day as well. And I remember going over to help my one of my other teachers, Verada,
Yeah.
and at her house she had some computer stuff and then some other things we were doing. So I went to
Oh,
help, and then she was asking, "You guys doing anything on the solstice?" And I was like, "Well, Tria's taking Victoria and I to a power spa in San Diego. Never heard of it." And then she says, "Oh, interesting." And I was like, "Yeah, but there's an open event for everyone later, but nobody can make this but her and I because we're going out of town, family stuff." So she's just
oh,
gonna take. It's a quick thing. And then I was thinking in my head, "Oh shoot, that's like the perfect time." I was like, "I'm definitely getting a name on Saturday," but I wasn't sure if my peer was. And
yeah.
so I was like, "I don't know if she's getting one, but I'm definitely getting one. I can already feel it." And then I was thinking,
Oh,
ooh, I
interesting.
was like, that'd be pretty weird if I got one in front of her, almost like a punishment. He gets a name and you don't. So I was like, well, then I don't know what's going to happen. And then it was out of my mind, continued to help, Verada finish her stuff.
Interesting.
Then we go to class, and then we go get the name. And then sure enough, that was when Tria gave the name Jyoti. And I had never, again, funny story, I never heard this name in my life. I had no idea
Never
what,
heard this word. Never heard
never,
it.
never heard the word, nothing near it. And then so when she first said it, I must have had a look on my face because I was like, I was trying to think, like, well, what is this? Like it just
It
sounded
means
weird,
poop.
right?
No, I'm just kidding.
No, and actually, and some Southern Australian tribes, it does mean poop. But
Oh,
I'm
crap, for
kidding. I'm
real?
kidding. No, I'm
Oh,
kidding. I'm kidding.
as
Um,
I said.
but that's how Nandi got his name, if you remember, at the 50th birthday, same bullshit. So he became Nandi. So I was trying to think what it was, but Jyoti means the light or divine light, and so I thought it was beautiful. And so I remember Tria had said years before, maybe like 2 years ago, she gave a talk one Saturday, and she was talking about names and what's in a name, and then so she was
Mm,
spiritual names. It
mm,
might have been after Nandi got his. She was like talking about him in general, and she was
mm,
saying, you know,
mm,
a name is something you grow into, and it's like something you can become more of. So a
mm.
teacher might give you a name because you need more of this in your life. A teacher might give you a
Oh,
name because you have it already, but you need to really embrace it and it's like almost your birthright. Don't be
yes.
afraid to don't shy away. And if you don't have a spiritual name, she's saying take your name now and you define what it means. And this is when she kind of looked over
Mm,
at me and to other people who were on the verge of like we're excited, but we weren't monks yet. We didn't have names,
uh-huh.
and we were still doing the work. And I remember going home and my name's Tommy, government name, and I got out paper, right, and I was like Tommy, and I was like, what does this mean? And then I remember doing this exercise multiple times when I needed
Huh.
to become new people or, a
Huh.
new person for a new problem. I had some major
Oh,
family stuff. So it means compassion, patience, this and that, some work stuff.
oh,
Tommy now
oh.
means power, capability, insight, vision,
Wow.
yep, and
Wow.
relationship stuff. And I would redefine and I would do a journaling. Like it looked like I don't
Dang.
know what it's called, but like the word bubbles with all the words. I would just
Oh, yeah.
put all the words out, and then I would pick like 2 to 4 that really succinctly summed up who I needed to become at that point in life.
Good.
And I
Good,
did
good.
that for years, ever since she
Oh,
gave
I
that
didn't
talk.
know that.
Yeah, so
Cool.
I kind of forgot about needing or wanting a name,
Yeah.
and when I no longer desired one is when she gave it.
Of course.
Now I say
How it
for
happens.
me,
Yeah.
yeah, and I and I maybe if I given up desire sooner, it would have come sooner. Probably not, because
Exactly.
I had a lot of work and clearing to do in my life.
Oh,
Um,
oh.
if you know the timeline of some of the major stuff in my life, it came after a pretty major event to
Yes.
me
Right,
that
right,
had
right,
been kind
right.
of been a huge thorn or in my side or, uh, you know, then they get Jesus with a sword or a spear in
Yes.
his side. So it's like a
Yeah.
huge spear, and the spear was removed, and I
Oh,
thought it was very fitting. Tria waited to give me a name until pretty much a week and a half after that wrapped up finally after
wow.
a lifetime of going through it. And then that was also on the cusp of the new year, and so
Yes.
I just saw it as like a whole like rebranding, being reborn, a whole new way for
New
me to now
beginning.
show up as light for others, and but especially for myself. I have a
Mm.
tendency to be not low vibes, but more. I can be more mellow, more reserved, but I can also be joyful. I can be funny. I can be outgoing, but that's not my default. That's usually what I ramp into if the situation's right. Just
Oh.
living, it's more mellow, more reserved, more laid back,
Mm,
more,
uh,
balanced. I wouldn't even say balanced, you know what I mean? More like
okay.
a quiet monk or something, not like an outgoing, like not like you. Like you have like the unicorn energy. You're still the ninja, but you have the laughter, you have the joy, you
Oh,
have the
funny.
light, you know.
Oh,
And
oh.
and so to me that was like, especially when going through dark stuff in life, don't fall back into the more either
Mm,
depressive or the
mm,
quiet or the super zen Tommy. Become this light filled Jyoti, and be a beacon of
wow.
light for myself, for others, no matter what I'm going in, and step into the light, and then one day become the divine light. And so for me, it was very inspiring.
Oh,
Yeah.
Jyoti, I love how you put that. That's so beautiful. I love that perspective. And I didn't know that you're doing that with your regular government
Mhm.
name, dude. I hadn't done that before.
Yeah, it's a great exercise.
Very
Anybody who
fascinating.
wants to do it, whether you have a
Okay, that's a
spiritual
great,
name or not.
good
Words are just things
suggestion.
we give meaning to. Just
That's
take it,
right.
journal out what you need, right? You need love, if you need power, compassion, understanding, if you want enlightenment, whatever. And then,
Yes,
like, if I say the word school, you think that means, oh, a place to go learn, whatever. So when
right.
you say your name, that's what your name now means. And then you live every day into that name of
Yes.
whatever you define it as. And then for me, that was like a very beneficial tool.
Ooh, uh, what is, yeah, Avalokiteshvara is about compassion too. Yes,
Hmm.
right? So it's like I'm seeing it. It's like,
Like Kuan Yin.
you know, yeah, okay, but it's like your middle name, Jyoti Avalokiteshvara. See, can you spell that now? Spell it, B, go.
I can get most of it. I think it's Avokitesvara,
What
but
happened to the L?
Avo
L?
L. See, I don't
Oh,
know how to spell it then. It's one
oh,
of those names you can never spell right, like Fahrenheit or something.
goodness, I didn't do spelling bees, but yeah, I feel you. I feel you on that. That's cracking me up. This is
Jyoti's
funny.
easier to spell.
Thank God. Thank. So curious because
Mhm.
I do things which are feel very creative for me and like just to kind of support spiritual names and all the stuff like that. And playful thing I do is when I was little, I don't know why, I was just like really about learning how to sign my name like beautifully. I wanted to
Ah,
sign my name well, right? And so I remember like not even in grade school when I was passing notes to friends, like I'd be very, very intentional of how I wanted to sign my name.
yeah.
And I think also coming from the background from like creativity and just like drawings, it was a big thing, you know? So when I got my first spiritual name, it was like, oh, let me practice how to sign my name, like a celebrity thing, you know.
Yeah.
Have you practiced signing your name, your spiritual name, with the Y and like how to
Um,
T or no? You don't care about
I
that
don't
stuff.
I don't know if I've written it on paper yet. I've done it in emails and like one
Oh,
or two texts, and I typed it. But the J is similar to a T, so I already have that, and I already have the Y and the O in my name, in my government name, right? So it was just kind of, just
I'm curious how your signature would be in Jyoti. I'm curious. You have to draw it out for
big
me
J,
sometime.
big J, big J,
You have to draw it out. Take a little screenshot photo thing and all.
big J, and then a bunch of scribbles, and then huge dot over the I. But yeah,
Is it a dot? Is it a star? Is it a heart? You know, like celebrities don't do their little nice little.
I have a friend who's a rock star, and he signs his name. It's his
Yeah,
initials, and then he does a star over all of them. I'm like,
exactly.
dude, that's
Very.
not your name. That's like a scribbles and a star. He's like, yeah, but the bank knows it's me. And I was just like, you crazy.
I feel like it's very artistic. I don't know. It makes me just feel fun and creative around that.
I'll have to
Nice.
practice that.
Yeah. Oh dear. Maybe you come up with. Now you're making me like daydream. Is like maybe you come up with some like ohm signal as like a how do they call it? A
Oh yeah,
flourish
yeah,
of your name.
yeah.
Yo,
Like on the
yeah.
times symbol. I like some
See,
of the stuff on that. Yeah,
practice.
but then I gotta get it copyrighted or patented or whatever
Yeah, yeah.
and
It's
sell
beautiful.
it. No, I'm kidding.
Awesome. Did you have any questions for me? I know I asked you a lot of stuff off the top of your head. No formal. If you don't, it's fine.
All right, two things. Just one would be, what is your advice for people new to the path, whether it's meditation or spirituality? And then the second question would be like, uh, what do you consider enlightenment?
Oh, this is a good one. And it will reference episode one. So
Okay,
I will definitely send
call
you the
back.
link for episode one too. No, 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 I'll answer it again. So first question, what advice do I have for beginners?
Yeah.
Everything you talked about is super relevant. And I guess I would add on to that to say, be thoroughly, brutally honest with yourself of if it feels right, if it lines up with you a hundred
Mm,
percent.
yeah.
Because I feel it's very easy when we're searching on the path and we're shopping around.
Mhm.
It's like dating, right? And you're
Yeah.
meeting new, and it's like, oh, that
Just
person's
like that.
cool, like that. And then like, oh, they're funny, they're this, they dress cool. Yeah, I can hang out with them. But it's not fully 100% aligned that you're like, oh, okay, this is the person I'm marry and spend the rest
Yeah.
of my life partnership with. And I know that sounds maybe very serious. It's not intended to be serious, but the essence behind being so thoroughly, brutally honest with yourself of what is in alignment for you and your truth and your heart,
Hmm.
specifically for this path, is there's so many challenges, as you know, and so many transformations that we go through that can feel really chaotic, stressful, turbulent, right?
Hmm.
Triggering, if you want to use a therapy word, that if you don't go into it 100% aligned, like I am fucking home and
Line up
like
with your
land,
decision. Yeah.
yes, and land there, then all the turbulence and turmoil that potentially happens as part of the spiritual path and journey becomes too easy of a gap and opening to take you out.
To
And
deter
I've
you.
seen
Yeah.
that, right?
Hmm.
I've seen that where people are super committed, have the most amazing hearts, beautiful beings. You're like, you're amazing, right?
Hmm.
But their ability to stick to the path and practice is actually shortened because whatever wasn't lined up, right? And sometimes it's maybe a karma thing, right? So,
Yeah.
eternity knows more than us, and right timing and all this stuff like that. But I feel like if we can be honest, and that sometimes takes some patience to wait for what needs to line up, right?
Hmm.
And it's not in our ego's time or in our mind's time, it's in this spiritual realm time, like you were talking about with your spiritual name. It's like, oh, I'm ready.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I've been there. I've been there now for my spiritual name. I've been there for like teachings. I've been there for empowerment. Like, I'm ready. Come on, I'm ready. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Empowerments. Yeah.
What do you need to do? I'll do it. Like a monkey in a circus, right? But the timing isn't right, and to be able to, have a real honest teacher, right? That you're studying with that really can hold you to that truth, which is the
Hmm.
beautiful thing. And the practice starts with us not even lying just a little bit. We're just so about the truth that it's like, okay, it's not the time yet. And then when we let that go, it happens. It's so weird. It always
Yep.
happens that way, right?
Let go of the
But so,
resistance. Yeah. It makes room for the thing to come.
yes. So, and that core component of being so brutally honest with us, to keep that with ourselves continuously through the path and practice is an asset. I know sometimes it feels like, at least for me, my brutal honesty sometimes can go into like Eeyore style, like it's raining outside, like
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's a mindfulness practice to stay in balance with it.
Hmm.
But when we bring thorough honesty into the path and practice, it becomes like it helps to be a buoyant, like inflatable life-saving
Yeah. It's like
device
a life
when the
preserver. Yeah. It's because you know you're being there authentic, you're your real self, like you really want this, so why not, if it's rough sometimes, just wait it out, because this is where you actually want to be, versus if you kind of don't want to be somewhere and things start to get weird or hard or shaky, it's a lot easier to leave. And I was going to ask you if it was okay to cuss, but you already did. So I was given an article, it was in regards to dating, but then I realized it's really good for all other aspects of life, and
yes,
it's a, if it's not a fuck yeah, it's a no. So like if you're seeing
Oh,
somebody and it's kind of like, I kind of like them, but this, no, because you're just keeping yourself and them from the truth. So if you're looking for like, sounds like you're saying a spiritual
yeah,
place or a spiritual home, if you don't feel like it's your home, you're kind of unsure, even a little bit, that's a no,
right.
because you're delaying yourself from finding your truth where your home is.
That's
And it
right.
might be elongating, the progress of your path, because when it gets rough, you're gonna bail or leave versus, hey, it's okay to do more shopping. This is not it, right? Same with dating. Hey, we had one great date or even two, but I
Yeah,
don't feel like, ooh, I can't wait. This is what I want. I'm at home. Because even with that person, it's going to be rough sometimes. You're going to have a
that's
disagreement,
right. Yeah,
maybe a light argument. Things will be weird. They might have a bad day. You might have a bad day. And so,
yeah. It's
and that
real.
makes it easier to leave, right? If you weren't already fully 100% there. So if it's not a fuck
Right.
yeah, it's a no. And just move on to the next thing.
I
Save your
love it.
time, save their time. And you get to your truth sooner.
We'll have to
So,
include that article in the notes too.
okay, I'll
Yeah,
send it to you.
you
And
have to in
do
the
you
link.
remember the second question, the last one? I think I
What is
lost my plan.
enlightenment to me?
What is
What?
enlightenment to you? Yeah, that's what I want to know.
Wait, so a little synopsis from episode 1, and then I'll probably change like the description. But
Okay.
what I thought enlightenment was when I first started on the path was absolutely not what I have learned or experienced it to be later on down the path.
What did you think it was like when you first started? Are you willing to share?
Yes. So in the beginning, I have the profile of like straight A student. So enlightenment was like this school curriculum.
Hmm.
Semester 1, you accomplish this. Semester 2, you accomplish.
Yeah, yeah.
And once you get this
School
degree,
of
then you can
enlightenment.
go apply for this, right?
Yeah.
It felt very linear to me, is my point.
Hmm.
And it was like for sure hard at some points because some of that curricular, activities was outside of my comfort zone I've never done or something like that, right? So it it was this idea of I'm checking off the boxes as I go down this,
Hmm.
and not necessarily easy, and some things more difficult than others, right?
Yeah.
But eventually, I check off all the little marks of the boxes, and bing, I be there, enlightened, awakened, done, right?
Yeah,
That
and then
was
you're done.
so my thought. I can't even count how many times, in all the years I studied with Taria, how many times she's like, "You're never done. You're never done." She told us all the time. It keeps going. The path keeps going. You're never
Yeah,
done.
yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. So when I get my PhD, I'm gonna be done. And she's like,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
you're never. So it was this like my ego didn't want to hear I was done, and I was like, no, I'm gonna fucking check, 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 and I'm almost there. And then I have three of my teachers like, well, you're never done. I'm like, oh, yeah, and I like keep doing my shit.
It is like
Like
the
denial.
wanting to be done, like a fear of like, well, now I'm enlightened, I don't know what happens, or is it like it makes it seem achievable more so if there's a checklist?
The done, no, actually, it's not. But if I'm being honest,
Hmm.
the done was my ego's way of being lazy, weirdly enough.
Oh,
Lazy
like
in
you
the
get to a
sense,
certain point and then that's good enough, you're enlightened.
good enough, and I get a motherfucking coast in my retirement,
Yeah,
right?
well, hey,
Like
that's
a
one
trust
way.
fund baby, like
They're called
like that.
nepo babies now too. Have you heard that yet?
Oh, I haven't.
Nepo baby is a new term for like, nepotism.
Oh, okay, like that. And this was my illusion, and I would say that I mean, I get a little bit sad with myself about it, but it's very compassionate. It's like, and because I was unwilling to hear the truth of what
Hmm.
Drew was telling me, it definitely created a lot of suffering within myself. Because guess what? It's an attachment that I was holding on to think that this enlightenment awakening stage was a linear check off to do list,
Hmm.
and couldn't hear that it was something else. Couldn't imagine, couldn't comprehend. So there was definitely a moment, in the, as Rama talks, the enlightenment cycle, because it
Hmm.
keeps going, right? I don't think he would call it a cycle if it didn't keep going.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think there was like a little Easter egg there already, but I wasn't paying attention.
The
That
enlightenment checklist.
right, because shoot, if that was it,
Yeah, just
or
get these 12 talks and you're done.
nope, it's called the enlightenment cycle.
Mm,
And so there was a real point in the spiritual growth and journey of my life where it felt really tumultuous
mhm.
of having to reconcile this big attachment that I had with letting that go, dissolving that, and be like, what now? Which
Yeah.
the way I spoke about it in episode one is it felt like I had to give up. And for me and my other profile within me, which is very warrior martial arts, is
Yeah.
you never give up. I mean, that never cannot be repeated enough times. Never, 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 never give up, you know?
Mhm.
And so it really became this koan that I was like koan battle within myself. Like, I need to give up so I can like move beyond. But you can't give up. You gotta keep going, right? And as I mentioned before, and what Taria has said before, she said, you know, you practice until the forgetting stops. And
Wow.
when I think of her saying that, I feel like the forgetting being samsara, you know, like samsara is nirvana, nirvana is samsara, right? And how do we continue to practice until samsara is nirvana for us, right? And then nirvana is samsara for us, like equally. And that either or is like dissolved kind of a thing, that forgetting. And that for me look like super being honest and transparent. Like I sit down on my meditation cushion. I was like, I don't know what's like meditating. Why?
Yeah.
What's the point? You know, I felt very hopeless, you know. And
Because
they
the
there's
sitting
talk
wasn't
about
doing anything, or because you thought there was nowhere else to go, or
both,
you thought you were already there.
both, both,
Oh,
both.
okay.
No, it's like, I do it. I had these experiences. Bright, not so bright, boring. Like experienced it, you know, kind of
Yeah.
thing. Checked it off. Now what, you know?
Dang.
But but do I not do this? And it was this weird. There was a weird moment I remember one day because I was kind of like sitting on the meditation cushion, like
Hmm.
super half-assed about it, like so not being impeccable at all.
I've been there.
But this is you know just as a timeline thing. This is like 15 years after practicing. This is the vibe I was bringing to the thing. So
Yeah.
there was also for sure a lot of judgments about myself around it. It's like, why are you being so poo poo head about it, you know? But I was like, ugh. And I hear that, I'm like, get out, whatever. So I had this very clear moment one time when I was sitting on the meditation cushion, didn't want to be there. And I was like, oh, I'm going to do what Sharia said, which is I'm just going to let the practice me.
Whoa. Okay.
So my giving up, my surrender looked like all the years and the hours I had put on the meditation cushion. I'm just going to kind of lean into that foundation structure, if you will, and allow it to just move through me as it needed to. I will sit, I'll be here, and it's like, do with me what you will.
Regardless if like, there was an outcome or a reason why, or
Right.
like an achievement at the end of the meditation or a purpose for it, it's just like you're gonna get out of the way and do what needed to be done or what
Yes.
needs to happen. With no expectation, no
No
attachment,
expectations.
no why, no result,
And no judgment, no beating
no
myself up
judgment.
that i
Yeah.
that i had surrendered, no beating myself up that I couldn't keep going, like no, nothing, like just
That's hard
totally
to
letting
do
all that
as
go.
a human
It was
being.
really hard. It was super inward fight.
Yeah, yeah.
And and just that realization alone, I felt like opened me up to be able to be at a new state of, I don't want to say aware, maybe awareness is the right word, but like
Yeah.
peace, a new level
Ah,
of peace. And at this point, I was like fuck the awareness, fuck the enlightenment. I didn't fucking care no more, right? Because I really
Yeah,
did.
yeah.
I was like, give me some peace because it was so tumultuous for me.
And on the inner world, right? Just
Yes.
yeah.
And this is what I talked about with in episode one. I was like, I was going through this like spiritual midlife crisis because in my head I was like, this is bullshit. This is so fucking bullshit. Why the
Yeah.
fucking waste all my time? Bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. But right.
Yeah.
But I let so to be able to let all that go, it's like, okay, well, what do you want to do today then? Do you want to go to a club now? Do you want to go party? Whatever.
Do some cocaine. Yeah.
Yeah. It was like world's my oyster. And I was
The world's
like,
your oyster. Yeah.
oh, I kind of just want to sit. Like, why? I have these voices in my head
Oh
going, it's like,
yeah, yeah. The
why?
devil and God raging inside you.
Yes. And it was that inclination and the proclivity to continue to practice was not me. It was the practice and the foundational work I had laid out, the energy of that, right? That
Mm-hmm.
was propelling me, which super testifies to nothing being lost or not used on this spiritual practice.
Yeah.
We all think like that was a waste of my time. No, nothing absolutely was wasted. So after that, just kind of practicing and letting the practice me,
Wow, I like that.
that that place of peace was like, okay, cool. And that how do I explain that greater awareness,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I'm trying not to verbalize it in a linear way because it didn't feel that way. It was like circle expansion,
It's like an
wholeness.
opening.
Yeah, like a wholeness opening way, like this
Mm-hmm.
way. Um, that the opening of a greater level of awareness um, allowed me to be more, believe that, skillful at managing my life, my energy, my time, life, and mind, essentially, what Rama talks about.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't think that was possible but like you said, I started like this, go
Yeah.
like this, and I went to like this part in my awareness where I was like,
Yeah, yeah.
fighting, right?
Yeah.
Because it was like the constructs were break, and when the constructs finally melted, it's like, oh, it was like it opened this way, and I was like, whoa, kind of a
Mm.
thing. And having access to all that in more skillful ways, in a very whole, grounded, tangible, real way,
Yeah.
I feel like is the enlightenment cycle and the awakening process,
Mm-hmm.
because now I won't hear myself say enlightened or awakened because it feels like an end.
Oh,
It's
okay.
like,
What do you
right?
call it
It's
then?
like enlightening. It's like it keeps
Oh,
continuing.
I like
Awakening,
that. Oh,
you
okay.
know,
I like awakening better than awakened. Okay, that does make sense. Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
the awakening expands and because the world, especially the inner worlds and dimensions are infinite.
Mm-hmm.
How can you be
I get it.
awakened in like a stuck structure? It's like it's awakening.
This might sound kind of like rudimentary because of what you were
No?
talking about. I'm a big comic fan, like growing up and as I got
Mm.
older. But there's some comics like called Batman Year One, and
Oh,
Batman had to go through what he did as Bruce Wayne, right? His parents got killed,
yes,
and then like he never got that resolved, and trauma, and Alfred takes care of
yes.
him. But then he goes to college, and then he goes to train with ninjas and all
Uh-huh.
sorts of world class martial artists, and all this stuff, right? But he came
Hmm.
back to Gotham, and he was Batman, but he was getting beat up. He didn't have a Batmobile. He really didn't have batarangs. You know what I mean?
Okay.
It was like Batman Year One. It was like, but he can continue to grow, like enlightenment. So it's not like you go study with the ninjas and you get the PhD, you come back to Gotham and you're the best Batman ever. You're Batman now. You're enlightened, but it's like you said, Teresa said, it keeps going. It doesn't
Yes.
stop. And that's when you see he becomes better and better and bigger and stronger. And he's not
Yes.
like falling off the motorcycle, and he now knows how
Right.
to like punch without breaking his hand. And
Yes.
he came back and he was Batman, but he's still
Yes.
growing. That year one though, right? And then second year, 10 years, right? So I think I kind of get it. It's not like come back to Gotham and you're the best Batman ever. It's all right, now you are Batman, but how do you become a good Batman or a skillful Batman?
Exactly,
You keep
exactly.
growing and learning.
And that
Ah,
becomes, I feel like, the ever ongoing refinement process, even as teachers are awakened,
mm-hmm,
right? That they continue the awakening process by having the because we all are,
mm-hmm,
enlightened and have enlightenment within ourselves, but we need to practice in such a way until that forgetting that we aren't enlightened is done, right? And once
yeah,
that is very clearly viscerally like grounded in our being, then the next step, as I feel like it, and I've seen it also in Taria's life, is then how do you continue to share this, bring this forth in skillful ways that is of benefit
mm-hmm,
to all beings, right? Which is so much the prayer and the ask in so many
yeah,
spiritual books, right? Like,
yeah,
may this be of benefit to all beings, and this, and I feel like that then is our deepest wish of any person that is awakening, right? Is like, I want to obviously not suffer, but more than anything, I want my non-suffering to also benefit you, so you don't suffer.
yeah. Share the
And
light.
then, yes, goes to Jyoti,
Yeah,
sharing the light.
one candle can light 1,000, and it doesn't take away from
Yes,
the first candle's flame. That one still burns.
that's right.
That's
And
why
I
it's
feel
good for
like,
us to become enlightened.
and I feel like that's my that was my sales ticket, for even wanting enlightenment in this life. Like,
Was to help
okay,
others.
both. I wanted to be
Oh,
happy selfishly, right? And
mhm.
and like be in a place, and that's why I go back to, like, I thought I could retire and be done, but
Yeah,
because I want to, right?
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
then
Enlighten
and then
enough
it's
for
like,
yourself, and then go to a cave.
and then right, and then it's like, now realizing, oh, I have a candle flame. Well, your candle looks like it's not burning. Here, let me help you. It's like it becomes easy. It
Mhm.
is, if that's the right word to say, like, as a practitioner, to be like, oh, here's my light. Here, you need some? Here. Um, and I
Makes
think that's
sense.
the bodhisattva piece, the bodhisattva, the service piece. Yeah.
That's a really good
Good.
definition.
Oh yeah. Good question.
Did you have the moment on the mat where the opening happened before or after your second degree black belt?
The awakening piece.
Uh-huh. Was it after?
After,
Yeah.
after,
Okay.
after.
Cool.
Yeah, yeah. That was a whole other story. Yeah, the second degree black belt
I feel like
was,
that's different. That's a whole different show.
yeah. We
We need
should do
another
another
hour and a
different
half.
show about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should definitely do another episode. But oh my gosh, Jyoti, thank you so much for your time. This was amazing. You are
Yeah. Thank
just
you for having
so,
me.
I just like mind blown with what you shared and how you shared it in the words. And just thank you. I love how you speak about things. This is why I just so wanted you on the show. So yeah.
And, well, thank you for having this platform and starting this podcast. I think it'll be very enlightening for everybody and just healing and a lot of great minds to come share and talk about how not to have a mind. So thank you.
Yeah. Okay, hold on.